Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the dual-wielding Reaper and got harem with Rangiku? Huge shout out to DECOYM9 for this story. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Naruto had an interesting life if he were to be honest. Born to parents who loved him, they died when he was 10, but lived with his mother's friend until he was diagnosed, half a year later, with liver cancer, and it was too far, so they couldn't put him through treatment for it. He was moved out of the house and is currently living in the hospital, and today is his end, but also new beginning if you think about it. Naruto looked to his left to see his nurse and smiles. "Could you give me a moment with her?" he asked, pointing to his mother's friend. The nurse nods and leaves the room. "Hey Shuri." He mumbled, his voice seemed hoarse and his body fragile. "How are you?" His response was for her to gasp and hold his hand. "Just be careful and take it easy, my love." She softly rubbed her hand and smiles. "I'm good, and you should sleep really." Naruto chuckled softly and smiles. "Do you think it hurts?" He got a questioning look and he responds with dying. "Do you think it will hurt?" He could have sworn he felt something prick the corners of his eyes before blinking it away and smiles. "Hey, never mind." Shuri looked at him and kisses his head. "Just take it easy, it won't hurt." He smiled as he felt her tears. "I'll always be with you, Aunt Shuri." When he called her Aunt Shuri, she sobbed and hugs him close. "I'll always watch you, and Uncle Stark." His voice seemed to be fading a bit. "Can you call the nurse in?" he asked Shuri as she nodded and walked out. "He's ready," Shuri muttered as she let the nurse go in. As she walked, Naruto smiled at her for the final time as he closed his eyes, the tears he held back now leaving his eyes as he mouthed, "I love you, Aunt Shuri, miss you," and that was the way Naruto died, with a loving smile. Minutes later the room had been cleared and Naruto's soul body was watching it all, his soul chain keeping him linked as he heard a gruff cough and turned around. "Hey old man, what are you doing here?" The old man chuckled at how he addressed him. "You don't seem surprised by me being here," to which Naruto shook his head. "Did you feel me coming?" And to his shock Naruto chuckled and nodded. "So, Shinigami-sama, what do we do now?" He turned to look at him completely. The old man had his eyes closed and a gray beard as he smiled at Naruto. Yamamoto smiled and reached for his cane. "I use Kanzam on you, and you pass on, join Rukongai, and if you wish to the Soul Society." Naruto nodded and chuckled. "Soul burial? Sounds old-fashioned, but let's get it over with, I guess," Naruto said and sat down cross-legged, which again surprised Yamamoto. "Wait." Naruto shouted, "Shouldn't I know your name?" Yamamoto chuckled and smiled again. "My name is Yamamoto Shijakuni Jinrikisai, head captain of the Gate 13, and captain of Squad 1. He repeated, "Now isn't it tradition to give your own name?" Naruto chuckled. "Well, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, old man, future Shinigami, I guess." Naruto muttered the second part and smiles. "Now the Kanzam time, I guess?" Naruto asked as Yamamoto nodded and tapped Naruto on the head with the bottom of his cane. "May you rest in peace, young man," Yamamoto said with a smile and went back to the Soul Society. Back in Soul Society, Yamamoto walked to his desk chuckling slightly to himself as he wrote down an academy recommendation for one, Naruto Uzumaki. Whenever he was used to Rukongai and Soul Society, whilst he was chuckling his lieutenant looked at him. "Concert, excuse me sir?" asked his second in command. What is it, Chimgerm?" asked Yamamoto as he finished the recommendation slip for Naruto and looked at him. "If you don't mind me asking, but what is you so excited?" he asked in a concerned tone. "Oh, that is because of the young man I just had to Kanzam," replied Yamamoto to the shock of Chimgerm. "But sir?" he asked in a startled voice. "There was a human with enough Ryatsu to make you need to Kanzam them." Yamamoto nodded. "Yes, young Naruto Uzumaki died from liver cancer and surprisingly has more Ryatsu than most captains of our Gate 13, Yamamoto replied nonchalantly to the surprise of his lieutenant. "But Naruto?" Naruto looked around a surprisingly clean place whilst watching as people that were dressed somewhat like the old man who Kanzamed him, but he shrugged it off and went on a little exploration adventure. After a few hours of looking he found out that where he was is the first subsection of Rukongai, the cleanest part of it as well. Not long after Naruto got acquainted with the first area of Rukongai he was found by Yamamoto. "Hey old man." Naruto shouted to the shock of anyone who knew who Yamamoto is. Yamamoto did nothing but laugh at Naruto and then smile. "Hello Naruto, I remember you saying you wanted to be a Shinigami when you got here, didn't you?" he asked, to which Naruto nodded and then was handed a sheet of paper. "Here is a recommendation slip from yours truly." Naruto smiled and chuckled as he read it. "Yes, I can become awesome." He acted like a child. Now he had his energy back. After all, he had it all stored up as he was constantly in bed. He smiles more at Yamamoto and to their shock Naruto hugged Yamamoto. "Thanks old man," Naruto said while crying from happiness. Yamamoto chuckled and rubbed Naruto's head. "Just make me proud, alright Naruto?" To which Naruto nodded and held up his pinky. "I pinky promise old man," he said with a smile. Yamamoto chuckled and wrapped his pinky around Naruto's "Good luck my boy," replied Yamamoto, making Naruto smile more and chuckle with Yamamoto. After their little talk about the Shinigami Academy, Naruto walked around until he found the academy and ran in. As soon as he entered, he saw a faculty member and walked up to them. "Excuse me, sir?" Naruto asked as the faculty member looked at him. "Where is the principal's office?" Naruto asked nervously. This is his first school after all. The teacher nodded. "Yeah, it's just down this hall, and if you turn right it will have a small plaque saying principal. Knock 3 times and wait for him to answer." Naruto nodded and followed the instructions and knocked on the door 3 times. After a 5-minute wait he heard someone shout, "Come in," and entered. As he entered he saw a man who looked about the same age as Yamamoto sat behind a desk and walked over to it. The principal looked at Naruto with a raised brow. "Hello young man, how may I help you?" Naruto looked at the principal and handed him the sheet Yamamoto gave him. I was recommended to join this school." Naruto muttered as the principal nodded and opened it and read it till his eyes widened. I see," responded the principal as he looked at Naruto and nodded. "You'll be starting in the 1st grade," he continued as he walked to the closet, "and we have your uniform here." He handed Naruto the uniform for the higher class and then a shinai. "These are all the essentials. Oh and. .. He trailed off and looked for the timetable here. He handed Naruto the timetable and smiled. "Good luck and do Yamamoto Taicho proud." Naruto beamed and nodded as he walked out of the office. Naruto walked towards his dorm to change into his school uniform. Upon arriving he changed into the school uniform and walked around the campus to get used to it. While walking about he bumped into a fellow classmate, Shinji Hirako, and soon became friends with him. Shinji also promised to introduce him to some other friends. Naruto was happy that he was starting to make friends and chuckled softly. This might be fun, Naruto muttered to himself before returning to his dorm to a person who has dirty blonde hair and a bucket hat. "Ah, you must be my new roommate. My name is Kisuke Urahara, smartest person in Shin Academy. Nice to meet ya." The now identified Kisuke said with a smirk and chuckled as Naruto nodded. "You too, Kisuke. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I hope you can help me when studying. I never went to school when I was alive," Naruto said with a nervous chuckle as he sat on his bed. Kisuke nodded and smiled. "Well, I hope I can be of use to you now, my friend," said Kisuke, extending his hand. Naruto returned the gesture by shaking Kisuke's hand. Kisuke's eyes widened as soon as he felt Naruto's spiritual pressure. "Are you sure you haven't graduated?" he asked incredulously. "Nope, I just got recommended by Yamamoto Jinrikisai," Naruto replied as he chuckled and lay down on his bed falling asleep whilst Kisuke stared at him in complete surprise. "This kid will go places," muttered Kisuke as he fell asleep on his own bed. The next morning, Naruto woke up with a yawn as he looked at his uniform he was about to put back on and chuckled. "I'm getting closer, Yamamoto." Naruto muttered as he put his uniform on and stretched after he heard Kisuke groan and chuckled. "Wake up, Kisuke, time for classes." Kisuke woke up and glared at Naruto. If looks could kill, Naruto would be begging for mercy as Kisuke sat up and put his hat on, then the uniform. "The way you act, one would have thought you were an A-S rank Shinigami." He mumbled as he stretched and the two walked to their class. "What do you mean?" questioned a confused Naruto. Kisuke looked like he was about to answer as another voice Naruto heard before said, "What Kisuke means is that most of the higher ranked Shinigami have a weird trait apparently, like being lazy, hyperactive or just acting dumb, but in reality are a genius." Naruto turned to Shinji and nodded in understanding. "Right, so because I spent 6 years in bed saving energy he thinks I'm an S-ranked Shinigami?" Naruto asked as both Kisuke and Shinji nodded before picking up on the saving energy part, but realized Naruto was already at the classroom, staring in awe. "Wow, this is a classroom?" asked Naruto, as if he had been awake for hours. Shinji nodded as Kisuke spoke. "Yep, these are the classrooms, just keep up your hard work and you'll be out of them in no time." Naruto just turned to him, as if he were dumb. "Why would you want to leave these? The last time I saw a classroom I was 10 years old." Naruto blurted out to the surprise of both Kisuke and Shinji. "Naruto, how did you die exactly?" asked a confused Shinji. Naruto's excitement disappeared and he smiled sadly. "Liver cancer was all," he said as he sat down and smiled again, "but I guess it was better than suffering like Aunt Shuri told me." Naruto continued as he smiled again. Kisuke nodded as Shinji looked like he was going to apologize, but didn't as he saw Naruto's happy smile. "Hey Naruto, my other friends wanted to meet you today. I guess you met one already, but there is 2 more," said Shinji, and Naruto's whole face brightened as he looked at Kisuke then Shinji and laughed. "I never thought you two would be friends," exclaimed a chuckling Naruto as Kisuke laughed a little. "Well, believe it kid, we met a while ago, but there is 2 other you gotta meet, and if how you act now is anything to go by, they are gonna be your best friends," replied Kisuke as his head suddenly shot down and he cradled it in pain. "Amma Kisuke, I told you to wait for me," shouted an irate female voice. When Naruto looked at her he looked confused and then he looked at Shinji with a raised eyebrow. "Shinji, who's that?" Naruto whispered to Shinji, who seemed a little scared. "That's Uruchi, which means that the other one is almost here." As he finished he was suddenly hit by a blonde blur. Idiot Shinji was all the person said as they kept stomping on his back. Naruto turned his gaze from the blonde girl to Yuruchi. "Hey, I'm Naruto, nice to meet ya," Naruto said as he held his hand out, which made Yuruchi and the blonde girl look at him. "You're the one Shinji and Kisuke wanted us to meet?" asked Yuruchi as she shook Naruto's hand, and Naruto nodded. "Oh right, I'm Yuruchi Shimin, and this is Hiyori Saragaki," Yuruchi said as she pointed to Hiyori. Naruto almost burst out laughing and mumbled, "Monkey brat." Yuruchi nodded and Hiyori pouted whilst glaring. It was now that Kisuke and Shinji got up as they looked at him and the Hiyori and realized why he said that and caught their laughter just in time as the class was about to begin. Naruto was sat at his desk with a small yawn. He looked to Shinji and Kisuke and remembered their years at the academy. They had small tournaments between their friends to see who would do the best in their classes, which Naruto aced most, but for which were the areas his friends were best in. The science area, Naruto was beat by Kisuke. In Hakuta, hand-to-hand combat, he was beat by Hiyori. In speed races he was beat by Yuruchi, and in Kenzanjutsu, swordsmanship, he was beaten by Shinji, but even so he did get something which surprised them all, as there was only two others who got this. He had two Zanpakutos, which he later learned their names were Susanoo and Amaterasu. Naruto knew who they were as when he was alive. He loved mythology from all cultures, so he knew of the Shinto gods. After learning their names he trained in their abilities in private and started to hold back in spars at the academy. He learned that Susanoo allowed him to summon storms and control the rain and lightning within it. It also allowed him to create a samurai-type armor from a mixture of his Reiatsu and lightning that he creates in the atmosphere. The armor is like a Susanoo from Naruto-verse. He also found out that Amaterasu allowed him the ability to summon flames, which only he could allow to be extinguished. Amaterasu also had the ability to give him near immunity to other flames. Or flames weaker than his own, which came from the sun. Naruto's Reiatsu reserves became so potent and deep that his reserves were almost 3 times the amount that Yamamoto has. He also had near perfect control of his Reiatsu. He also had the habit of only using one of his blades in spars unless he deemed his opponent strong enough. The only ones who had made him use both blades was Captain of Squad 11 Kenpachi Zaraki. I don't know if Kenny was in the Soul Society before Kisuke, so I'm going to say he was, and Shinji, after being forced to use both blades against Kenpachi, or Kenny as Yuichiro forced him to start calling Kenpachi. Naruto started to train harder until he was stronger than Kenny. He also knew he wouldn't get better than Shinji unless he got used to Shinji's and Zanpakuto's abilities, which he found annoying. Right now Naruto sighed as he looked to Shinji. "So where is the monkey brat and Catwoman?" Naruto asked as he kept up the nickname for Hiyori and his new nickname for Yuruchi. This made Shinji chuckle before he looked to Naruto. "Hiyori will be here soon, she has to wake up Yuruchi, who decided to sleep," and Shinji replied, making Naruto shake his head and Kisuke to start snickering. Before Kisuke could finish snickering, his head was hit into the desk, making his snickering to turn into groaning. He looked up and glared at Yuruchi, who was pretending to act innocent, while Hiyori was just laughing. "We're here, Naru-kun," Yuruchi said with a smirk as she started to call Naruto Naru-kun. When he started to call her Catwoman, she knew it got on his nerves, but loved how he reacted. Naruto just looked at her and sighs, "And the annoying Catwoman is here already. Maybe I should call her Yuruchi-sama, as she is the next head of the Shihun clan," Naruto grumbles, as he then smirks at her offended face at being called Sama from her friends. Naruto just grinned. "Hopefully I get in a different squad than you because I won't have to deal with the teasing," he said, and then heard laughing. In front of him, he looked forward to see Love Okawa, a friend the group made throughout the years at the academy. Naruto just grinned at his friend and said, "Oh, it's Love, how long have you been here?" he asked innocently as he saw his friend face fault. "Naruto, I thought we talked about you not looking at your surroundings," Love said defeatedly as Naruto somehow never noticed him. This made Shinji sigh. "Love, you know he always ignores you on purpose," Shinji said, and then continued, "After all, most of the time you have your head in those books you get from Shunsui. Whenever he comes round to teach Naruto the 2 sword styles," Shinji said before finishing asking Naruto, "Have you decided on a style for your 2 sword style?" Shinji asked, getting all the attention of their friends. "Huh? Oh yeah, I made my own, but it still can't beat your damned released Zanpakuto," Naruto said as he started to grumble. "After all, it literally flips everything, and you control how it all changes," Naruto grumbled as the teach soon came in to take them to the ceremony. Naruto smiled at finally leaving the academy and tried to think which squad he would want to go to. The only one he could think of was either Squad 13 under Jashira Yukitake or Squad 8 under Shunsui Kairaku to help further his 2-sword style. As Naruto and his friends walked in, they walked up to the stage, got their Shinigami attire, and stood there to find out which squads wanted who. Yuruchi decided to go to Squad 2, Shinji decided to join Squad 5, Love joined Squad 7, Kisuke joined Squad 12, as well as Hiyori and Naruto, which surprised everyone, was offered a spot in all squads, but Squad 4. Naruto decided on joining Squad 8 as it would help him a lot. -100 years into their career. Naruto was stood in the captain's meeting room along with Love, someone they met called Rose, Lisa, his squad's lieutenant, Shinji, and the Kido Corps lieutenant Hachigen were being ordered to go to the site of where Squad 9's captain Kensei Muguruma going missing, along with his lieutenant Mishiro Kuna. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he nodded at the orders. As the meeting was adjourned, Naruto and the recovery group ran towards the site, where they went missing to see Kensei and Mishiro attacking Hiyori, who was already there by orders of Urahara. Hachigen used a binding Kido to bind both Kensei and Mishiro, while Shinji tried to look over Hiyori's wounds, only to see them gone. Not long after, a white mask had erupted from her mouth and covered her face as she proceeded to attack Shinji. After this happened, they were surrounded in a darkness with them being cut down. Naruto and Shinji, when they hit the floor, saw who it was who attacked them and realized it was Kanem Tausen. Naruto extended his Reiatsu sensing and felt Shinji's Lieutenant Aizen and someone else from Squad 5 Jinichimaru. Naruto growled before saying damn you Aizen, with it he passed out, and so did Shinji after protecting Hiyori from Kanem. He soon fell to his holification, and Tausen went to attack him only for the three to be bound by the captain of the Kido Corps Tessai Tsukubishi and protected by Kisuke Urahara. Canon events happen after this. Naruto wakes up after what felt like a lifetime as he looked around and saw Kisuke. What happened, Kisuke? Naruto asked as Kisuke looked at him. What was Aizen doing? Naruto asked as Kisuke froze. Aizen used my Heijyoku, which I designed, which allows for someone to breach the gap between Soul Reaper and Halo. It wasn't completed, and he attacked Mishiro with it, halofing her as I have came to call it. She then attacked Kensei, and that's when you all got there and got turned, Kisuke said as he handed Naruto his shattered mask. We had to break them to make sure you all keep your humanity, but they will come back to attack and take over your body, Kisuke said as Naruto nodded and sighed. I guess Tessai is here? Naruto asked as Urahara nodded and Naruto sighed. Another power I have to gain control of, huh? Naruto asked himself as he sat up. Get Tessai to make as strong a barrier as he can. I'm going to try taming mine and then teach the others, Naruto said as Urahara looked stunned and nodded, leaving to go find Tessai. After finding Tessai, Urahara walked back into Naruto's room, only to see him working out as Naruto looked at him. Is Tessai up for holding the barrier? Naruto asked, getting a nod from Urahara as Naruto chuckled. I still think Hachi's barriers would have been better to use, you know, Naruto said as he knew about Hachigen's barriers. Naruto stood up and walked out the room after picking up his Zanpakutos and following Urahara to the training grounds. After arriving, Naruto smiled at Tessai. Just feel lucky I don't have Bankai, Tessai, Naruto said as he chuckled, making the others chuckle as well. Yes, if you did have Bankai, I believe my barriers wouldn't last long, Tessai said as Naruto nodded and looked to the top of the stairs. I guess we'd best get Hachigen to have his powers tamed soon to help with the barriers for the others. Then, after all, they all have Bankai but Hiyori, and that's only because me and her never went under the training with our blades, Naruto replied thoughtfully, making Tessai and Urahara nod at this. Yes, Hachigen will be better with his special barriers he can use, huh? Asked Urahara as Naruto nodded and then sat down with both his katanas on his lap in their base state in a sheath. Put the barrier up, Tessai. I'm going to confront this hollow power, Naruto said as Tessai nodded and put the barrier up. What surprised him was that Urahara started to assist with the barrier being raised. After the barrier was raised, Naruto nodded, took a deep breath, and went to his mindscape to talk to his Zanpakutos about this power. Upon arrival though, he looked about the city-themed mindscape and saw three people talking on the building opposite them and sighed. So the hollow power is already in the mindscape, he asked himself as he made his way over to see the three people around a poker table, and Naruto joined them. So Mr. Hollow, Naruto said, getting the hollow's attention, how are we doing this? The hollow version of himself looked at him and replied, we could always fight Mr. Soul Reaper, the hollow replied before looking at Naruto and grinning, although we do have the same abilities and know each other's moves, the hollow continued before it finished. So what do you say? We fight to determine which has the stronger will, and the winner will have control of the body. Asked the hollow as Naruto seemed thoughtful and then nodded. They both stood up and walked to a roof without anything on it, and both summoned their variants of Susanoo and Amaterasu. As they both pulled out their weapons, they seemed to be sensing each other out, and with an unknown signal they bolted at each other. When the hollow took a swing, Naruto countered with a parry and swung his blade. This continued, sparks flying from the contact the blades made until the hollow slipped up and Naruto slashed across its chest. While outside of his mindscape, Naruto's body was being hollowified. It looked like a samurai armor with a fox snarling mask, think Oni from DBD, with a mask of a fox snarling, and it's all white with lines of red and black forming down the center. After getting the hit, Naruto stood there panting lightly as his Holoself stood up with labored breaths. It seems that I'm the one who could win, Naruto said aloud as they dashed again. They both looked for openings in the opponent's form, and when Naruto saw it, took his strike and hit his hollowed self again, stabbing it and pinning it to the ground as Naruto stood above it. Surrender, Naruto said. As his hollow self looked at him with wide eyes and then sighed. You win, it said before continuing. Next time we should have another spar like this, king, and with that said the hollow dissipated and became a chain connecting Amaterasu and Susanu's spirits together, and Naruto looked to them. I guess I should get going, huh? Naruto asked more to himself until he saw both the spirits shake their heads. Naruto, we believe it's time to learn how to use our full powers soon, they said in sync, surprising Naruto as he stood still. We know you've been ready for a while, but we needed to see if you would be able to fight yourself and your hatred, Susanoo said as Amaterasu nodded and Naruto smiled. He nodded before replying. I'll make sure to come by and learn the basics from you guys, and then practice it all, Naruto said with a smile as he then left the mindscape. Once entering the real world, he saw his body covered in a bone-like armor, but could feel a small exposed bit at his tailbone and smirked. Lifted up his Zanpakutos and stabbed at his gut, breaking the armor as it blocked the sword and crumbled to his feet, making Naruto smirk. I did it, huh? He asked more to himself as he removed the mask and looked to Kisuke and smirked. Hey Urahara, Naruto said as Kisuke sighed and smirked back. Hey Naruto, ready to come out and show them what you have mastered now? Asked Kisuke as Naruto chuckled and nodded. After the nod, Kisuke and Tessai dropped the barrier and saw Naruto vanish from the center, faster than they could see, and surprising them as they were captains. Naruto appeared on a boulder behind them and looked at the hatch. Visards, Naruto muttered as Kisuke looked at him. What? Kisuke asked as Naruto looked at him with a smirk. We'll be a new faction for people like us, if there is more, called the Visards, Naruto said as he stood up and stretched before vanishing again and leaving. The evidence Kisuke and Tessai had of him leaving was the hatch making a bang as it shut. After Naruto left, he walked to the rooms where his friends and now fellow Visards are and opened the door with a large grin. Hey there, monkey brat. Naruto shouted, making Hiyori turn to him as she growled, oh, and you're here too, Shinji. Shinji chuckled lightly as he looked to Naruto. You already knew we were all here, after all you are the best at spiritual sensing out of all of us, even though you hid some of your skills to make Kisuke seem the best, Shinji said as Naruto feigned a hurt look. Me? Hide skills from my bestest buddy ever? Naruto asked, putting a hand over his chest. Oh Shinji-kun, you wound me, Naruto said sarcastically with a grin. Oh well. I'm the first to get a small amount of control over my hollow powers, muttered Naruto as he sat down, and I was offered by my Zanpakutos to be trained in Bankai, Naruto said again, shocking all of those that knew him. Only the basics, as I want to master it on my own. Naruto grinned at their shocked faces. So you could finally be classified as a captain though we aren't there anymore? Asked Hachijin as Naruto chuckled and shook his head. I was already as strong as Shunsui Taicho, and possibly Yamamoto Taicho, Naruto answered as he lay back. After all, flames can't hurt me, unless they burn hotter than the sun's flames, and I'm a master at Shunsui's two-sword style, and my own maelstrom style. Naruto smiled as he closed his eyes. Anyways Hachi, you're up next to master and confront the hollow in you. After all, we could use your barrier prowess with the others, considering they know Bankai, and the hollow manifests on your body and tries to take over, Naruto said as he cracked open an eye and looked at the clock. Damn, I was almost down there for 3 hours. Naruto muttered and looked at Hachijin again. And don't take 3 hours or the hollow will take over. As soon as Naruto finished, Urahara walked in. Actually Hachijin, Tessai is taking a break as we need to find a base of operations, and we can't exactly stay in this abandoned warehouse, Urahara said as Naruto booed him, and Naruto here will be showing you all what the more tame version of the holification looks like, won't you Naruto? Urahara asked as Naruto looked at him before Naruto sighed. Hachi, put up a barrier. We don't want Sarate knowing where we are, Naruto muttered as Hachi nodded and put up the barrier. After the barrier was put up, Naruto sat up and put his Zanpakutos to the side as he exhaled a deep breath, seemed to center himself, and then gripped on the air above his head and pulled down, pulling a fox-styled hollow mask over his face. After doing so, he held the bottom and moved it to the side before speaking in a slightly distorted voice, which was a mix between hollow and human. This is my, as I started to call it, visored form. It's a soul reaper with hollow powers, and if I'm guessing correctly, it will allow us to use the abilities that hollows use. Like Sunito and Shiro, we may even get the high-speed regeneration. Naruto mumbled the last part and then looked at Shinji. Oi Shinji, cut me across the stomach with your sword, Naruto said, and Shinji did it without hesitation, though he hoped Naruto was right about the regeneration. He looked at Naruto and saw his cut wasn't even visible or scarred over, and Naruto grinned. I wonder if we could harden our skin as well. With Raishi, Naruto muttered to himself and dismissed his mask as he was nearing his 1-minute mark limit and sat down. I also suggest after getting the powers training them so we can use the masks for longer, Naruto said aloud as he picked up his Zanpakutos and then dismissed the blades, making them vanish in a blue lightning spark and a flicker of black flames, and appeared on Naruto's hands as rings, one with a symbol of fire which was black, while the other was a dark blue lightning strike. I guess that's another ability we get, Naruto muttered, and Shinji spoke up. This skin hardening you were talking about? Shinji asked as Naruto looked at him. What did you mean by it? Shinji asked again as Naruto seemed to think it over before replying. I mean like strengthening the skin, making it slightly stronger, while also being able to keep the speed we have, Naruto said, as Shinji nodded and looked at him. Let's try it. Shinji attempt to cut me again, Naruto said as he spread Reishi throughout his body, and then flinched as he felt Shinji's blade. Note to self, doesn't work, Naruto muttered to himself as he fell, and then his stomach regenerated. After all was over, Hachi lowered the barrier, and in walked Tessai with a black on his shoulder, making Naruto smirk. Kuro Nico. Naruto shouted and the cat jumped at him, and he cuddled it. Hey Yuruchi, Naruto said to his other best friend seeing her. Yuruchi seemed to pout and transformed to her human form with clothes, as she then moved out of Naruto's lap. Gotta spoil the fun, Naruto? Asked Yuruchi, making Naruto chuckle, and all the ones who didn't know Yuruchi looked confused. Alright, why are you here anyways, Yuruchi? Naruto asked as she looked at them all and sighed. I helped Kisuke escape after he told me what happened and how Aizen got his hands on the Hachioku and hello-fied you all, she answered as Naruto sighed. So our rescue team was a barrier and Kido master, a mad scientist and a now renegade heiress, Naruto said aloud before he was bopped on the head by said heiress. I'm just calling it as I see it, Naruto grumbled, and Kisuke spoke up. Tessai, did you find a place for us to stay? Kisuke asked as Tessai nodded and handed him some papers. Yes, Kisuke, you now own a small candy store which has a basement which could be used as the training grounds. We could also sell some stock to Soul Reapers or our friends, the Visards here, Tessai said, making Naruto nod before he thought of something after feeling a lot of spiritual presenses. Kisuke, where are we? Naruto asked, making them all look at him. A small city or town called Karakura town, Kisuke said, making Naruto nod before he stood up. Why do you ask, Naruto? Asked Kisuke. There are a lot of hollows and I just wanted a nap, muttered Naruto as he then continued, and these amount of hollows will one day draw a lot of Sarate's attention, Naruto said aloud as he looked around. Anyways, let's keep the warehouse as storage, Naruto said, making air quotes, and smirked. After all, I believe this would be an amazing place to train the Visards and future ones if we find any. Naruto finished as he looked to Urahara, who nodded. Then they all left to Urahara's store. After getting there they trained the rest of the Visards and helped them taming their hollow powers. After they finished that, Urahara gave the 9 Visards, himself, Tessai and Yuruchi, all gig eyes. So you don't draw the attention of the Soul Reapers on patrol, Kisuke said as they all nodded and entered the gig eyes. After that the Visards minus Naruto went to the warehouse after saying he was the leader as he got a hold of the power first. Damned assholes, Naruto muttered as he sat in a Senza style as he looked to Kisuke. I wish to help run the store with you, Naruto said as Urahara nodded, knowing he would. What about the Visards? Kisuke asked as Naruto groaned. I'll leave Hachi or Shinji in charge while I'm here, then I'll take leadership while I'm there, Naruto muttered out as he then lay back. After all, before I died, I always wanted to run a store, Naruto said with a small smile, making Kisuke chuckle at his best friend. Sure, we can run it with Tessai, Kisuke said, getting a raised eyebrow from Naruto. Not Yuruchi? Naruto asked as Kisuke shook his head. Let me guess, the cat wants to explore more. Naruto asked as Kisuke chuckled and nodded slightly as Naruto chuckled with Kisuke, and they stared to set up the store. Minus 30 years later, 20 years before canon. Naruto was sat in the front of the store tending to the store while Kisuke went out for whatever he didn't know about. Naruto was about to welcome whoever walked in until he saw it was Kisuke and then looked behind him and froze. What's Aizen doing here, Kisuke? And with a quasi at that, Naruto asked in an annoyed tone as Urahara waved him off, and that's when Naruto saw the hollow hole on the woman. Your hero complex is going to get us killed, Kisuke, Naruto groaned as he went back to reading the magazine in his hand as Aizen looked at him. Naruto? Asked Aizen, getting a lazy nod from Naruto. Why are you here with Kisuke? Aizen asked again as Naruto looked at him. Me and Kisuke own the store with Tessai, Naruto said as he looked at Kisuke. Should I get her one of the gigai that seal her spiritual pressure and Reishi to stop her turning into a hollow? Naruto asked Kisuke, who nodded but was stopped when Aizen shouted. Stop. Naruto stopped and looked at Aizen as he motioned for him to go. I'd like one as well, Aizen said, making Naruto groan. You'll be abandoning your Soul Reaper duties and your place in Sarate, you know, Aizen, Naruto said as Aizen nodded at Naruto, making Naruto sigh. Then look at Kisuke, who nodded as well, surprised by Aizen's decision as Naruto left to get the gigai. Kisuke asked. Why are you doing this, Aizen? You were close to having a Taicho position before we left, Kisuke asked as Aizen chuckled. I love this woman is all Aizen said as Naruto walked out and looked at them placing clothes on the counter as he handed them the gigai. Which division did you get, Aizen? Naruto asked Aizen, who looked at him before answering. I got division 5 to be the Taicho of, but it seems someone else will have it now, Aizen said as Naruto nodded and pointed him to a room over to the side. You can change through there, it'll make it so me and Kisuke don't got to see your junk, Naruto groaned as he sat at the counter again as Aizen took the gigai and clothes as well Misaki's and her unconscious form and walked into the room to change Misaki and then himself. After getting into the gigai he walked out and Naruto nodded, "You presents feel human, and you too look human," Naruto said as he pointed to another room, "Put the woman in there to rest," Naruto said as he looked at Kisuke who nodded to him, and Naruto said aloud, "Tess, I will help heal her enough to accept your love and marry you," and whatnot Naruto finished as he yawned, "You may as well start searching for a house and a job as well Isin," Naruto said again, and Isin nodded. "Yeah, I might open a doctor's clinic," Isin said as Naruto looked to him and nodded before saying, "I know someone who'd love to meet you know." Naruto said as he pulled out his phone and pulled up a number. "Hey, Isin's at Kisuke's store," he said and then hung up. Within what felt like 10 or 15 minutes, Shinji walked in and looked at Isin. "Damned idiot, why are you here?" exclaimed Shinji as Isin explained everything to Shinji and Shinji looked stunned. "So you gave up being a soul reaper for a woman? A woman you want to marry?" Shinji asked, and unknown to them besides Naruto as he felt Tessai's presence, said woman was stood at the door with Tessai standing behind her. "Really Isin?" Masaki asked and Isin sat frozen as Naruto grinned and chuckled. Not long after Isin nodded and she smiled, "Of course I'd be your wife, though I don't like the idea of being called Shiba," she finished making Naruto chuckle. "Don't let your sister-in-law hear you saying that, Kukaku might just slaughter you if she did," Naruto said, making all of them, but Masaki shiver, "Even Tessai, although I believe congratulations are in order, so I'll give you and Isin the location of a very nice looking that was recently given up by the old owner," he said, handing them a piece of paper with the address. "It's got 4 bedrooms. The kitchen and 2 bathrooms and out the front is the clinic area with beds and everything," Naruto finished, as Isin looked surprised and looked at him. "I didn't know where I'd like to live since I can't keep freeloading off Kisuke, so I was house searching. The price isn't too high, and judging from Masaki's look she is from a rich Quincy family, or one of the only ones. All I ask is if your kids ever get Hollow and Soul Reaper powers, send them my way and I'll send them to Shinji and the wonderful visards." Naruto grinned as Isin nodded. The new couple walking out and going to buy the house. Kisuke sat there as Shinji was about to leave as he spoke up, "I believe Aizen is going to start his plans soon," he said, making Naruto growl. "Of course the bastard is, he's a Taicho and has Jin who probably leads a squad and Tosin who will be in charge of squad 9, Naruto said as he then looked at Kisuke, "Though we know his abilities and what he's after," Naruto said, and Shinji nodded and left to tell the visards to be prepared for anything. Naruto seemed to go back to work as Kisuke walked back into the store. Minus 20 years later, canon. Naruto was sat at the counter and then felt an explosion of spiritual pressure that felt like a soul reaper's, so Isin's kid has awoken his abilities or had them forced awake, muttered Naruto as Kisuke walked out and Naruto nodded. "Seems my job as Kyofu is getting harder," Naruto muttered as he remembered being named the godfather of Isin and Masaki's kids. Naruto stood up and walked to the door. "I'm going out, Kisuke," Naruto said as Kisuke nodded and manned the store. Naruto stood on the pavement next to Ichigo catching the boy as he killed the Hollow, "So the brat did it, huh?" Naruto muttered to himself and then took notice of the stunned girl and raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" he asked, confusing the girl who then looked at him. "Me?" she asked as Naruto nodded, carrying Ichigo on his back. "I'm Rukia Kichiki of Squad 13, who are you?" she asked, confused at the man in front of her. Naruto just chuckled and smiled. "Oh, just a historical figure who got fired for a science experiment I didn't wish to partake in," he said jokingly as he turned to the clinic. "Anyways, I'd best be telling Isin, I caught his kid playing hooky with someone." He walked off and smiled. "Just use your Raishi to cast the illusion of a car crash happening. I'll probably meet you soon, Rukia Kichiki," Naruto said as he walked into the clinic and saw Isin. "Ah, Isin. I caught your son playing hooky, what happened here?" Naruto asked, keeping the act up so that no one would suspect anything. Isin just shook his head. "Naruto, we should talk in my office and we can talk about the things that happened," Isin said as Naruto nodded and put Ichigo on the ruined couch, "so the Hollows are more active," Isin said as Naruto walked into his office and locked the door. Naruto nodded and sat down. "Me and Kisuke have been laying low to keep our cover, and the visards I haven't heard from much recently, apart from they are looking for more like us, so we haven't been hunting. Kisuke even got us some extra hands around the store, and Kuroniko sometimes comes back," Naruto reported to Isin, who nodded. Naruto heard some knocking on the door and stood back up. "I'd best get going, I do have a store to run," Naruto said as he unlocked the door to see a small girl with light brown hair. "You look so much like your mother, it's crazy," Naruto mumbled, making the girl look confused. "Ah, Yuzu. My baby," Isin shouted as Naruto smirked. "This man is your godfather, as well as your siblings," Isin said, as Naruto smiled. "How come we've never met you?" asked Yuzu as Naruto seemed to think. "Well, I run a small candy store with a friend, and we get really busy whenever I want to come visit you guys." Naruto just chuckles and rubbed her head softly. "But if what Isin has told me about you three is true, then you are the little cook," he said and smiled. "Next time I come round, I'll have to try some." Naruto finished as he kisses her head softly and walks to the front door, "And I'll even bring some candy for you and Karen," he said as he walked out and back to the candy store. After he left, Ichigo groaned and sat up. "Hey, what happened?" He asked as Isin bonked him on the head. Your godfather caught you playing hooky and brought you home claiming you passed out from embarrassment, Isin said before sitting down. What's there to be embarrassed about? Isin asked as Ichigo looked confused. Playing hooky? Wait, you said Godfather Naruto was here, Ichigo asked as Isin nodded. He even promised to come around with candy for Yuzu and Karen next time and to try Yuzu's food, Isin said as Ichigo sighed and nodded. Back with Naruto. Naruto walked through the doors of the candy store and saw Kisuke sat behind the counter, reading my magazines. Now Kisuke? Naruto asked as Kisuke seemed to chuckle. Yeah, don't make it seem like you weren't having fun seeing your godchildren, Kisuke said as Naruto stuck his tongue out. So who else was there? Asked Kisuke seriously. Oh, the girl, Arukia Kichiki Squad 13 under Jashiro. Not to be funny, but the amount of times he was sick, I'm surprised he hasn't been put where we go when we die, Naruto said while looking to the door. Ah, the girlie's here. Betting a gigai after Ichigo drained her of her Soul Reaper powers as her spiritual pressure feels like a civilian's level, Naruto said aloud as Kisuke got into business mode. Naruto just grabbed a new magazine as the girl walked in. Are you Kisuke Urahara? She asked looking to Kisuke as he looked up from the magazine, his bucket hat covering his eyes. Why yes I am. Who's asking? Asked Kisuke as Naruto tried to hold in his laugh as she answered, telling her the same as Naruto as Kisuke nodded. So Naruto wasn't lying, eh? Kisuke asked himself, confusing the girl. Naruto? Who's that? Rukia asked as Naruto sighed. Wow, Soul Reapers must seriously be slacking in the academy now, Naruto muttered from next to the door, and it's only been 500 years there. Naruto asked as Kisuke nodded and made Naruto chuckle. Ah yes, I'm the one who helped out Ichigo, Naruto said as he looked at her, though I must add you for assisting in awakening his powers, yet they are still being restricted, Naruto said, surprising the girl. Oh right, yeah, I was exiled because a captain over there went rogue and made me into a weird hybrid. But hey, I'm still here, Naruto said as he bowed, or as Yamamoto likes to call me, Naruto Uzumaki, the strongest dual wielder. After Naruto finished his introduction, Rukia looked confused before she remembered what her big brother told her. You're the one who could beat Shunsui at his own game? Even when Shunsui went Bankai? Asked the girl stunned as Naruto smirked and chuckled. See Kisuke, I'm more famous than your perverted ass. Only person who'd remember you is Mayuri, Naruto said before nodded. Yes, I beat Shunsui Taicho in a duel using our blades. I didn't even have to use both my Shikai, though if Kenpachi were to learn his Zanpakuto's name, I would love to spar him sometime, Naruto said as he then sat next to Kisuke. Anyways, how could we help you, Rukia? Asked Naruto as she seemed to snap out of her stupor. Right, yes, I'd like a gigai as soon as you can get them done, Rukia asked as Kisuke seemed to think before Naruto nodded. So I should just go get it, right? Asked Naruto as Kisuke nodded. Naruto stood up and walked to the storage room, 5 minutes later walking out with a female teen gigai and put it down with some clothes and a school outfit. We'll also have to make you seem like a transfer student until you can leave and head back to Sirte, Naruto said as he started to fill out the papers for Rukia to be put into Ichigo's school and keep an eye on Ichigo. Trouble tends to find him a lot, Naruto said as he handed her the forms and smiled. That should be all. I'm sure Kisuke would love to let you stay here, Naruto said as he stood up. Oh, and if you ever go back to Sirte, don't tell anyone we're here. After all, it'll be more problems here. After Naruto said that, he walked out the door waving over his shoulder, leaving a grumbling Kisuke and a confused Rukia, who turned to Kisuke. Thank you for having me, Kisuke-san, Rukia said, and Kisuke just waved her off. Tesai. Kisuke called out, getting yes boss from the next room. Prepare a room for our guest who will be staying for a while until she gets her Raishi back, Kisuke finished as he then turned to the main doors. After all, this place will start to get more interesting, Kisuke finished and chuckled slightly. Time skipped to the night. Byakuya and Renji come to retrieve Rukia. Naruto was sat in a tree and watched as Byakuya stabbed his godson and his younger sister through the Sankamen. After watching it, Naruto sighed and shunpoed in front of Ichigo and looked at him before sighing again. Your father is going to kill me, Gaki, Naruto muttered as he picked up Ichigo and saw Kisuke picking up Ryu off the floor. Back to the store and have Tesai heal them, Naruto asked, getting a nod from Kisuke, and Naruto vanished in a shunpo. Upon entering the store, he saw Tesai cleaning the main area. Hey Tesai, get 2 rooms ready for injured people. We have Ichigo and his Kwaisi friend Ishida, Naruto said as Tesai nodded and walked to the back room. Once he finished setting up the back room, he called Naruto through and saw Kisuke as well, so he called him through as well. Then they set them down on the beds and left the room for Tesai to heal them. Naruto pulled out his phone and called Isin. Hey Isin, the Sirte has made their first move, only problem is the Gaki got hurt, Naruto said as Isin seemed to growl down the phone. It would also seem that Raiken's Gaki got hurt protecting Ichigo. Ironic, isn't it? Asked Naruto with a small chuckle, stunning Isin on the other side. If I know my godson like I do, he'll want to go after his girly friend and bring her back, so I'm going to have Kisuke our buddy here teach him in the Shinigami aspect until you get your Reiatsu back. Anyways, I'll talk to you later." Naruto was about to hang up until he heard Isin shout. "Wait." Isin shouted down the phone, "Just make sure to keep Ichigo safe and go with him. I know Yoruichi taught you how to transform, so you could keep an eye on us all," Isin said as Naruto chuckled slightly. "Please Naruto, protect him," Isin finished as he hung up. Kisuke seemed interested and looked at Naruto. "What's the chuckling about?" he asked as Naruto put his phone away. "I guess Yoruichi has some gakis to train, right?" Naruto asked, making Kisuke nod and show him a photo of Ichigo's friends Orihime and Chad. If Naruto remembered correctly, "I guess Yoruichi isn't the only one going to Sarate with the gakis," Naruto said as he picked up his coat and smiled. "I have a little bit of training to do. I'll be back for the rescue mission," Naruto said as he vanished from Kisuke's sight. Kisuke looked at the spot where Naruto was. "So Isin asked you to protect him and do your job as a Kyofu?" Kisuke asked himself and then pulled out his phone and called Yoruichi. Once she picked up he spoke. "Naruto is going to Sarate with you all?" Isin asked him, to which is surprising, as Isin rarely asks us anything. Last time he asked anything it was him asking as Naruto would be his kids, Kyofu, Kisuke said, and heard a giggle on the other side of the phone. Of course he asked Naruto, barely anyone could keep up with him throughout the academy or in the Sarate, and the fact he is an honorary member of my clan, by knowing the transformation, Yoruichi said, and trailed off before smiling to herself. "I best get going to train these kids," then she said and hung up, making Kisuke chuckle to himself. Week later. Naruto is sat in his fox form next to a black cat he knows as Yoruichi. They were sat talking to Kisuke as they then saw Ichigo and his friends heading into the area with them in. They were currently in Urahara's underground training grounds that seemed as large as a country, but was actually the size of a basement. They continued to chatter between themselves as Ichigo stopped and looked at them. "Who are these?" Ichigo asked Urahara as Urahara replied. "These two will be helping you for around Sarate," Kisuke said as Yoruichi decided to talk up. "Myself and Kurama, Naruto in fox form, will be assisting you for around Rukongai and Sarate once we get there," Yoruichi said in her cat form, but had a deep voice making the four believe she was male. Naruto then spoke up as Kurama. "Yeah, we'll show you around and help you find a way in, as long as you listen, and then we'll be safe," he said pointedly at Ichigo, who took some offense. Naruto stood up from beside Yoruichi in his fox form, as Yoruichi said, "My name is Kurama. I will also help guide you all through Sarate and Rukongai. We will be heading out as soon as you all are ready," he finished as he nodded to Urahara, who nodded back and hit Ichigo's forehead with his cane, and Ichigo's soul self came out as Urahara then fed it Khan soul pill. "We should mention if you entered whilst still being in your human form, you would have gotten lost forever and died," Naruto said seriously as Ichigo nodded slightly. "You should also be able to learn a bit of spiritual control, as your Reiatsu levels are all over the place. Strong, but not the strongest I've felt," Naruto said seriously, as he stood up and walked over to Chad and hopped onto his shoulder. "Well, now that introductions are done, I believe it's time for you all to start heading on to Rukongai," Kisuke said as he and Tessai opened up the Sinkamen. There were no hell butterflies, so they used the more secretive entrance. As they ran through, Ichigo spoke up. "Why are we going this way and not the way those Soul Reapers went?" Ichigo asked. Yoruichi looked towards Naruto and saw him asleep on Chad's shoulder and sighed as she replied. "None of us have hell butterflies. They allow the safe passage of pluses, which are souls and soul reapers. This is the way that we have to use because we have none," Yoruichi finished as they heard a train's horn. Naruto's ear twitched at the sound as Yoruichi shouted, "Run." Naruto woke up and turned to it and sighed softly. "You should listen to the cat, Quincy boy," Naruto said as Ishida looked at him. "Why so, Kurama?" Ishida asked as Naruto looked at the train. "Because if a single drop of Reishi or Reiatsu touches that train," he said pointing at it with his tail, "the Soul Reapers will know where we are, and when we will enter, they will have the whole place surrounded," Naruto said as he thought to himself, "I also don't want to remove my fox form so soon. After all, I'd need to be in my Soul Reaper state to fight them, and then my visored state to fight Yamamoto." Naruto looked at them as they all looked stunned. They nodded and ran as fast as they could to avoid the train. That was until Ryu's cape got stuck. Naruto hopped off of Chad's shoulder, save Ishida. "Just tear his cape and run as fast as you can," Naruto said as he started to sprint while being a fox. He saw the girl slowing down and hopped on her shoulder. "I know of your feelings for Ichigo," Naruto said, making her blush. "Keep running, and I'm sure he'll praise you," Naruto said as she get a resolved look and kept running. Naruto hopped off her shoulder and looks over his own shoulder and sees Chad carrying Ryu. This makes him chuckle as he hopped onto Ryu's back and scratches his ear. That's when he sees the exit and hears Yoruichi. "We're almost there, keep going and we'll make it out safe," she shouted as they all nodded and sped up. They made it out, but Naruto seemed a little pissed, mainly because the girl mistimed her protective shield to catch her and used it in the tunnel, which alerted the Shinigami, and he sighed. Damned fail-safes, Naruto muttered and looked towards Uruchi. We'll have to go see her, Naruto said as Uruchi nodded slightly, knowing he was referring to Kukaku. Naruto hopped off of Ryu and smirked as he saw him grab a new cape. He heard Ichigo ask something. Hey guys. He got everyone's attention and continued, what's that? He asked as he pointed towards the Sirte's building. That's the home of the Shinigami, Naruto said and stood up properly as he walked in the opposite direction, but he didn't get to finish as when he turned around he saw Ichigo and the kids running and he groaned as he followed them with Uruchi. As they got closer Naruto saw the wall Ichigo. Naruto shouted and Ichigo turned around and ran back from the wall. The wall fell all the way. Aryan Sirte, you're lucky, that would have crushed you, Naruto said as Ichigo shivered and nodded. They stood there talking as they then heard someone talk and Naruto looked over his shoulder confused by the new gate guard. My name is Yadanbo. Protector of the White Road Gate. He bellowed as Naruto flinched knowing that was the strongest protect they can get. Oh cool, so could you let us through? Ichigo asked as if asking for a drink at a store. Naruto face-palmed as Yadanbo shook his head and looked to him. Oh well, I'm Ichigo Kurosaki and I'm going to beat you and get through that gate. Ichigo exclaimed as Yadanbo smirked. Strawberry? Yadanbo asked as Ichigo groaned and glared. It makes number 1, damn it. Ichigo exclaimed as he walked towards Yadanbo to fight him. He was followed by his friends through Naruto, and Uruchi sat out of the way as Yadanbo then cut the ground around himself and Ichigo making a barrier to stop his friends. Chad went to punch through it, but Ichigo stopped him. This is a one-on-one fight. He shouted as he unbandaged his blade, and Naruto chuckled as he lay down and closed his eyes. Ichigo, if you die you can explain to whoever you want why, Uruchi said as she looked at Naruto and looked confused. Why aren't you doing your job? She hissed as Naruto opened his eye slightly. Ichigo is stronger than Yadanbo, Naruto replied as he closed his eye. He could take on any of the Fuku Taichos, as long as they don't have Bankai, then he will start to struggle, but for now we'll just say he can fight up to 5th seat to not give him an ego, Naruto said as Uruchi nodded dumbly. Not even 30 minutes later he heard Yadanbo crying and opened his eye. See, told ya, Naruto said as Uruchi just nodded and watched as Yadanbo opened the gate and Naruto growled at who he saw there. Jin Ichimaru, one of Aizen's subordinates. Naruto watched as Jin and Ichigo talked and then saw as Jin stabbed Yadanbo with his shikai. He even heard the name and the activation words. Pierce, Shinso. Jin exclaimed as his Tanto-length blade extended and cut Yadanbo's arm and was about to go for his other until Ichigo blocked it and got thrown into Yadanbo, pushing them both towards Rukongai. Naruto looked at the gate and glared at Jin as he waved from behind the gate. Bastard, Naruto muttered as he walked towards Ichigo and Yadanbo Orihim. Naruto shouted as she looked at him, could you heal up Yadanbo? His wounds will kill him if he isn't healed soon, Naruto said as he turned to see the villagers coming out and Naruto looked to see the eldest walk out. Thank you for protecting Yadanbo, he said as he saw Chad and the rest. He then heard Chad ask. Why didn't you all come out earlier? Chad asked and the elder answered. We believed you were Shinigami, the elder said as Naruto looked intrigued. They have been doing a lot of suspicious things recently and we don't want anything to do with it, he said and continued again, thank you all for protecting Yadanbo. He used to be a citizen of this area of Rukongai and he's always helped to protect us, the elder said as Uruchi stepped forward. Is there anything I can do for you all? Uruchi spoke up. Yes, you can tell us if she is still here, she said, and the elder looked at Uruchi and nodded, knowing who she was and who she was on about. Yes, she is still here, he said as he handed her a piece of paper that was put under Uruchi's collar. Are you all leaving to see her now? The elder asked as Uruchi nodded and then Uruchi turned to Orihim and Yadanbo. We'll wait till he is all healed up before we leave, though, she said as the elder nodded. So the group sat there and healed up Yadanbo. That continued till midday and they all started to head towards the location Chad read on the note. Once reaching there they saw some stone arms holding up a banner. Where are we? Ichigo asked, wondering if the person they were looking for was crazy. We are here to see someone who can help us get into Sirte, Uruchi simply said as they walked closer and saw some gate guards. Upon getting close enough they spoke up. I, Kaganehiko, will not allow any Shinigami see our mistress. The other spoke with. And I, Shiraganehiko, will back up Kaganehiko no matter what. He finished until they saw a black cat. Ah, Master Uruchi. Shouted Shiraganehiko as Kaganehiko followed his line of sight and gasped. We apologize, Master Uruchi, we didn't know that these people were with you. They then saw a fox and were about to greet him, but saw Uruchi's gaze and stopped and nodded. We are here to see Kukaku, Uruchi said as they nodded and walked towards the door and motioned for the group to follow them. Naruto followed behind them all as he yawned in his fox form. Things are becoming interesting, he said to himself as he followed them down the stairs, then into a paper door and saw Kukaku sat there with her metal arm. Kukaku. Naruto shouted as he saw her and she turned to the voice and saw the fox. Kurama, it's been a while, huh? Since you were exiled, to be more precise, Kukaku said as Naruto nodded slightly. Yeah, about 50 years in the human world. What about 500 years here? Naruto asked as Kukaku nodded and Naruto groaned. The kids with them were confused as Naruto sat down. Ah yes, I believe mentioning there is a small time difference here and the human world, though none of your bodies will age as none of you are dead, only Ichigo would have died because he is a soul reaper, and coming here his body would have broken down to keep him as a soul reaper, Naruto explained as the kids nodded. He stood up and looked at Kukaku. So are we using cannonball to get in? He asked as she grinned at him and nodded. Yep, and you'll all have to take my younger brother, she said as Naruto flinched slightly and walked towards the door and lay down. Wake me up when we have to leave, he said as Kukaku nodded with a sigh. He still likes his sleep? She asked as Yuruchi chuckled. The quirk he got from his Taicho when he was still in Sarate, Yuruchi said as Kukaku nodded with a chuckle. The almighty lazy Shunsui, Kukaku said as Yuruchi nodded. The kids met Kukaku's younger brother Ganju, helped them train in using the cannonball as Naruto named it. -4 days later in real world, 1 day in Sarate. Naruto was woke up by Kukaku nudging him and handing him some fish and steak. You all leave after you eat, she said, as Naruto nodded and wolfed down his food. After eating he walked to meet them. Once he got to them, Ichigo asked. Do you even know how to make the cannonball? He asked as Naruto looked at him. We know Yuruchi can, but can you? He asked as Naruto stayed quiet as he sighed. I guess we should check, what are the dimensions we need? Naruto asked as Kukaku answered by pointing to the cannon. Naruto nodded and stood on top of the glass ball and channeled Reishi until there was a ball the right size. He then spoke, is this the correct size and strength? He asked as Kukaku nodded and flicked it, showing it didn't even make a wave or anything, it was still solid. Naruto stopped channeling Reishi as he hopped off the ball, and he walked towards the cannon. As Ichigo picked up the glass ball, they all got inside and made the ball, as Naruto stood on Ichigo's shoulder and used his tail to channel Reishi. He heard Ganju chant the blast-off lines as Kukaku and the Heiko brothers set up the explosives to launch them. Next thing they knew it was launch time, and they were thrown into the air. They flew perfectly fine and kept going towards Sarate. That's when Naruto said concentrate on controlling the power and don't let your control struggle at all. Especially against a barrier, Naruto said seriously as he was using himself to drain the Reishi as Ichigo's was too much, or pump some in if it was too little. After a while they froze in midair, and Yuruchi said as the ball started to brighten. Grab the closest person and hold on tight. She jumped onto Ichigo's shoulder and nodded to Naruto, who sighed and nodded back as he hopped off and away from the others. Kurama is fine by himself. He's the strongest person here after all, she said as Naruto sat down and the ball exploded. Naruto headed towards the edge as he watched them all group up and chat by himself, but then spotted Yuruchi on his shoulder. Good luck, he simply said as the explosion went off. Naruto stood up, but not in his fox form this time. He returned to his human form and stretched his shoulders. Well, I guess it's time I start to draw attention, he muttered as he turned his rings into their sword forms and started to walk about Sarate. He knew where everyone was and decided to head to where the Fukutechos were to pay them a visit. He looked towards the visit and vanished into a small flicker as he started to shunpo towards the Fukutecho meeting. Naruto stood on a support beam as he watches the Fukutechos have their meeting about the Ryoka invasion. He stayed silent as he watched them all, but his attention was mainly on a red-haired woman who was extremely busty, which made his inner pervert giggle a little before Naruto cleared his throat. Hello fellow Fukutechos. Naruto said with a grin as all of the Fukutechos go on guard as he then continued, I'm surprised no one realized I was here, but of course in over 500 years, you all would end up losing some skill I guess, Naruto said before Harry appeared on the table in the center of the room. The only ones who seemed to know who he was were the same ones he knew. Sasuke. You're still alive? Naruto asked with a small amount of mirth in his voice as he turned around and addressed the other people he knew. Nanao is now Fukutecho, huh? Naruto asked as he rubbed his chin and then turned to the last person he knew. Is that Yuichiro? Naruto exclaimed seeing the pink hair in the corner. Hey Yachi-chan. Naruto shouted as she looked at him annoyed. Fish cake? Yuichiro shouted as she looked a little pissed. Don't call me Yachi-chan. She shouted as Naruto grinned and shook his head as he caught someone's Zanpakuto. He then looked to held the blade in size. So it's one of the newbies? Naruto asked as he saw a red-haired man holding the blade. Maybe I should mention who I am, Naruto said before looking to Nanao. After all only 3 know me, and one of them was like a younger sister to me, Naruto muttered before he continued. I am Naruto Uzumaki, ex-co-Fukutecho of Squad 8 under Shunsui Taicho. Although I could have been a Taicho but was stopped because of me not knowing Bankai, Naruto said before continuing again. I also beat Shunsui Taicho with a single one of my blades and only using Shikai, Naruto said as she dropped the blade. So now I believe that you all should introduce yourself, Naruto said, and Nanao growled. What are you doing here, Naruto? You were banished along with Kisuke because of you allowing him to experiment on yourselves, Nanao growled as Naruto flinched a little and sighed. You see Nana-chan, I was hoping to not have my previous crimes mentioned while being here, Naruto said while sighing again. Yes, I was banished for those crimes, although I don't remember doing any of it, I remember us being forced with experiments by someone else, he said before he stood up and wiped off his pants as he heard Sasuke speak up. So what are you doing here, Naruto? Sasuke asked with a hint of hatred in his voice. Oh, I'm here to save Ms. Rukia Kichiki from an unjust execution, a bit like some other people I know, Naruto said as he stretched and then winked towards Rangiku and vanished. This was what it seemed like until Rangiku heard him whisper slightly, I would love to get to know you sometime when we aren't at war. Naruto's voice then vanished and left a slightly blushing Rangiku who seemed to be considering it. With Naruto after he vanished, he appeared above the Taicho meeting hall and then hopped down in front of the door and soon opened the door and looks towards the Taichos. Oh, you're all already here? Naruto asked as he walked into the room and then continued walk, surprising them all. The first one to speak up was one of Naruto's favorite people in the Sirte. Naruto, what are you doing here? Asked a Taicho of Squad 11, Kenpachi Zaraki. Naruto looked towards him and then chuckled. Ah, Kenny, I was wondering where you were, I just saw Yachi-chan after all, Naruto said before he turned to Yamamoto, making sure to glare at Aizen while turning his head. I'm here to save someone from an execution, and to tell you all, I now have Bankai. Naruto grinned at the shocked looks of them all, and he turned to Shunsui, so I'll be looking forward to our duel. Shunsui Taicho, Naruto said as he then turned around, and I thought I'd mention, never believe what you see, trust your gut after all, some things can be very deceiving, Naruto said as he turned around and walked to the door, leaving a sweating Aizen, Jin, and a slightly pissed off Kanem at what Naruto said. The rest of the Taichos were confused, but Byakuya was the first to break out of his stunned look and released his Shikai. Scatter, Senbonzakura, Byakuya muttered as Naruto heard with his ear twitching ever so slightly. He sighed as he unsheathed his sword and then started to block the Senbonzakura petals and sighed. Really? You'd need to get it up to Yamaji's speed if you want to actually damage me, Byakuya, Naruto muttered as he then saw the petals fall to the floor. And don't even think about it, Ice Boy, Naruto growled as he felt Hitsugaya's Raishi increase slightly and he looked towards him slightly and saw the snowflake Tsuba, so he linked him to ice. I believe you wouldn't even get close, Naruto sheathed his blade and started to walk away. After all, I could beat Shunsui Taicho whilst only using one of my Shikai, Naruto said as he started to walk and then said, and if I wanted to I could quite literally destroy this whole building, Naruto said as he then vanished, surprising them all, even the fastest captains. He certainly has gotten stronger and fatser, huh, Yamaji? Shunsui asked as Yamamoto nodded. I remember how strong his spiritual pressure was when he was only a plus, he had the amount of a captain when he was only a soul, Yamamoto said with a small shiver. Now imagine how much he can push out if he was pissed off, Yamamoto said as he shook his head. The rest of the captains were surprised by how Yamamoto spoke of the current Ryoka. Denpachi grinned at the thought of having his old sparring partner as he looked at where Naruto was. Naruto appeared outside on the wall of Sirte and saw Ichigo lay on the floor passed out. Naruto sighed and then saw Ganju and a member of Squad 4 run over and the two then take Ichigo into a sewer. Damn, Gaki got himself really injured, Naruto said as he felt all the Taichos go back to their barracks along with their Fuku Taichos. Naruto decided to stay where he sat when he felt Uruchi's Raishi appear beside him. You bought them a lot of time, Naruto, thank you, she said, making Naruto laugh and nod. I mean, hey, I kinda met a really cute Shinigami who has a bust bigger than yours, I may even have found someone to date, Naruto said, surprising Uruchi as he then chuckles and stood up. Only problem is she is a Shinigami, he said as he stretched and then turned around. Anyways, I kept the Fuku Taichos and Taichos occupied for as long as I could, Naruto said as he popped his joints, but I'd best get going as if I don't Yamamoto will come for me, and that's a fight I'd have to go all out on. Naruto finished as he vanished and reappeared outside of Squad 10's barracks. Shunsui Taicho, I've come for the spar that we are supposed to have, then I'm off to pay Kenny and Yachi-chan a visit, Naruto said as he removed his arms from the sleeves of his Shihakusho. It fell to his waist as Naruto unsheathed one of his two blades. I'll use Susanoo, and if IW worthy then we'll use Amaterasu, Naruto said as Shunsui appeared in front of him, and Naruto said storm. Susanoo, Naruto said as his spiritual pressure exploded off his body, and the blade of his Shikai became a lightning bolt as the handle turned gold. The Raijin no Ken from Naruto. Shunsui unsheathed his blades and held them in a cross and said, when the flower wind rages, the flower god roars, when the wind of heaven rages, the god of the underworld sneers, flower heaven bone of madness. After saying that, his blades became Chinese scimitars as he turned to Naruto. Shall we get started then, Naruto? Asked Shunsui with some somberness in his voice as he remembered their old spars. Naruto nodded and they both kicked off the floor and their blades clashed with one another. Shunsui saw Naruto's reaction time start to speed up as Naruto kept blocking each attack. As Shunsui was forced to speed up, Naruto soon stabbed forward but was parried as Shunsui went to stab Naruto in the chest. Naruto chuckled and then vanished from his spot and appeared behind Shunsui. I wish we didn't have to attack each other like his Shunsui Taicho, Naruto said, and then said again, after all Aizen is a damned bastard, Naruto growled, surprising Shunsui. As Shunsui started to connect the dots a little, just keep silent about it. Shunsui Taicho, Naruto finished as he turned to Nanao, you too Nanao, and with that Naruto vanished from his spot, leaving the two to think about what he said. After Naruto left, Naruto appeared in front of Ganju in the sewer and sat down. So you're Kukaku's younger brother, Naruto said as he yawned a little. Ganju looked pissed off and was about to attack, as Naruto said, wow, I change up my appearance, name and voice a little, and all of you want to attack. He sighed and then turned into his fox form. My name as you know me is Kurama, though my real name is Naruto, ex-Shinigami, and that Gaki's, he said pointing his tail at Ichigo. I'm his Kyofu, Naruto said as he turned into his human form again, and heard Ichigo groan as he looked to him. Oh hello again, you damn strawberry, Gaki, Naruto said as Ichigo shot up knowing the voice. Maybe I should explain why I am here, huh? After all, you're probably wondering why your awesome Kyofu is here. Naruto said as he saw Ichigo sweat drop but nod. Well, I used to be a Shinigami, like Kisuke, and I've been alongside you guys since you all came to Sirte, but not as a human, but as Kurama, my fox form, Naruto said, surprising Ichigo, who nodded slightly. And I'm here to tell you all that the Taichos have changed the schedule for the execution. She'll be up there in a week after all, Naruto said as the three there, Ganju, Ichigo and Hinata, looked shocked, but if I know where they are going to do it, it will be Sakyoku if my information is correct. So what's best is I know where the Sakyoku is, and judging by the member of the 4th squad you got with you, Strawberry Gaki, he may be able to direct you all there. I'll make sure to follow you all as well, Naruto said. Naruto stood on a tree branch and watched as Yamamoto was setting up the Sakyoku. He sighed and saw some of the guards brining out Rukia. This is going to be eventful, Naruto said as he then saw most of the captains there besides Yuki-take, Kenpachi, Jin and Aizen. He looked around and saw Kanem was there and chuckled a little. So this will be eventful when they get here, Naruto said to himself as he felt Kenpachi approaching with the other Ryoka. He also felt the increase of Ichigo's Ryatsu and chuckled, so he's acquired it, Naruto muttered to himself as he sat down and watched everything going on. He watched as Rukia was put on the Sakyoku and he yawned a little. He heard a bird screeching and chuckled and watched it. When it was about to reach Rukia, he saw it stop and smirked. Showtime, Naruto muttered as he stood up and shunpoed from his spot and reappeared in front of the captains. Hey there Yamajai, Naruto said as he appeared and looked around. I believe I should mention that I have the best godson, Naruto said before he started to chuckle. Anyways, I believe I should say Ms. Rukia Kichiki won't be getting executed, Naruto said and looked to his left, and little dragon there knows why, Naruto said as Toshiro arrived with Rangiku. Don't you, little dragon, tell them what you found out, Naruto said, and Toshiro froze seeing Naruto. What do you mean? Toshiro asked as Naruto gave him a knowing look, and Toshiro sighed a little and said, me and Rangiku decided to go and check out Central 46, and when we got there all of the counselors were dead, slaughtered, Toshiro said as Soifan spoke up. Who could kill them without us knowing? She asked as Naruto decided to reply. That young bumblebee, Naruto said, getting a growl as he looked to Kanem as the doing of his master, Sasuke-san, the one who stole Kisuke's experiment and turned me and several others into something above Shinigami and hollows, Naruto said as he turned around to look at the other captains and finished, and Kisuke's experiment was sanctioned by Central 46, Naruto said, surprising the captains as Naruto finished, and then they kicked us out for being too strong and they wouldn't be able to control us, Naruto said as he then sat down. But enough of that. I believe Ichigo and Ms. Kichiki are going to leave now, along with little Byakuya's lieutenant. Naruto finished and watched as the captains commanded their lieutenants to go stop them, and Naruto watched as Ichigo turned around and defended Renji, who ran off with Rukia as Naruto watched them try, but Naruto just groaned as he then turned and saw Yuki-take with the shield. He then stood up and walked over to Shunsui and Yuki-take. Enjoyed dealing with the old man, you two. I'm off to go say hello to someone else, Naruto said and started to walk towards Aizen and Jin. Hello bastard, Naruto said simply as he walked to Aizen and watched as Jin went to go defend him. Jin, I suggest you move before I kill you myself, Naruto said as Jin stayed still, and Naruto sighed as he unsheathed Susanoo Storm. Susanoo, Naruto said as his sword changed into its released state and his spiritual pressure increased to something that dwarfed their own, and Naruto chuckled. Shoot to kill, Shinso Jin said as the blade launched towards Naruto, and Naruto just caught it. Simply how? Jin asked as Naruto just sighed. Is this as strong as you get, Jin? Naruto asked as he just pulled the blade and pulled Jin off his feet and pulled Jin closer before kicking Jin away, and then Naruto looked towards Aizen ready to fight without Kyoka Sagetsu's illusions. Aizen? Naruto asked as Aizen's eyes widened, showing he was shocked at what Naruto said. How do you know? Aizen asked as Naruto grinned and then shrugged to piss Aizen off more before he held his blade up, and Aizen did the same. Naruto cracked his neck before they shot off towards each other. Before Aizen could reach the middle, Naruto kicked him in the gut and then sped towards him and went to stab him. Aizen went for the parry and Naruto pulled back and went for the stab, again only changing the location. Aizen used a small opening Naruto made to attack Naruto, but Naruto grinned. "Protect me," Naruto whispered as a small protective coat of Reishi appeared over where Aizen went to stab him. "This is one of Susanoo's abilities. Creating an armor over my body at the cost of my Reishi, and it's only as strong as I wish it to be," Naruto explained and saw Aizen's eyes widen a little, and Naruto chuckled a little. "I know, reminds you of your little toys defensive abilities, huh?" Naruto asked, knowing about Aizen going to Hukomondo. "How do you know about them?" Aizen growled out as Naruto grinned. "Oh, I've been dealing with the failed ones that you have been kicking out of Wakomondo," Naruto said, as he then channeled Reishi into his blade. "Now time to kill you, Aizen," Naruto growled before he pointed his sword up. "Come and fight for me, Kirin," Naruto said as some clouds appeared above them. The clouds thundered and rumbled, getting the attention of everyone before it started to rain where the clouds were, and Naruto dragged his blade pointing it towards Aizen. Once it was pointing at Aizen, Naruto said strike, he said simply, and a lightning-like dragon shot down from the clouds and sped towards Aizen. This struck fear into the captions as it struck the ground. Once it disappeared, Naruto looked at where it landed and sighed. "Damn it," Naruto muttered, and then shunpoed back to the Sakyoku and saw Ichigo battling Byakuya and saw Byakuya going all out. Ichigo was covered in cuts, and then he felt the presence increase and chuckled a little, "So it's showing itself," Naruto muttered and sighed a little as he heard Ichigo's voice go slightly insane and saw him fighting Byakuya on more equal terms. That was until he saw Ichigo rip off the mask and smirked a little. "Congrats, idiot," Naruto muttered as he saw Byakuya had passed out and Ichigo was standing and then passed out as well. That was until he felt someone in front of him. "All done now, Brad," Naruto said and felt Ichigo nod. He picked up his Zanpakuto and walked away with Ichigo on his back and smiled a little when he felt Itachi showed up close to him. "Let me guess, little bumblebee?" Naruto asked as Itachi nodded and smiled a little. "How did Ichigo do?" Itachi asked as Naruto looked at her and chuckled and nodded. "Yeah, he did amazing, stood up against little Byakuya," Naruto said, surprising her a little till she saw Byakuya on the floor. Naruto walked to the futons that Squad 4 set up and laid down Ichigo and looked to Unohana. "You don't mind healing the brat up?" Naruto asked as she nodded and started to heal him. "What was that mask, Naruto?" Unohana asked as Naruto looked at her. "You seem to recognize it," Unohana said as Naruto nodded. "Of course I know it, that's what happened to me and the others when Aizen attacked us," Naruto finished until he heard a female scream and turned to see Aizen slamming his hand into Rukia's chest and pulling out the Hyajoku and smirking. Naruto growled a little as he looked at it. "Aizen," Naruto growled as he saw Aizen smirked and admire the Hyajoku. "Of course Kisu hid it in a gigai," Aizen said as he turned to Naruto, "and you obviously knew," he said as Naruto went to unsheath his sword until he saw a beam appear to be protecting Aizen, Jin and Kanem well. "I believe this is so long for now, Naruto and Sarate," Aizen said as Naruto watched them floating towards the gaps in the sky, and he growled at seeing some Minos grands with some smaller forms, kind of human-like. "Those are your experiments, huh?" Naruto asked himself as he then sighed. "The Arankers," Naruto said as the holes in the sky vanished and Naruto turned towards a small light appeared and out walked some people, and Naruto chuckled at feeling their Reishi. "What does Squad 0 want with us?" Naruto asked and turned towards the newer arrivals. He looked at them as the one with a large scruffy beard and prayer beads around his neck spoke up. "Naruto Uzumaki, ex-Shinigami and ex-lieutenant of Squad 80 said as Naruto looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "Should I be asked what does Squad 0 wish with me?" Naruto asked as the monk-looking man looked to Naruto. "The Soul King wishes for you to join his royal guard," he said, making everyone's eyes widen as Naruto looked at him with a neutral look. "I thought I already refused at some point," Naruto muttered and then sighed and scratched his neck. "Give me some time to think of it, then I'll contact you all again. After all, I know how to contact you." "Ichib," Naruto said as the monk nodded, and then the rest of Squad 0 disappeared with him. Once they left, he turned around and looked at everyone who was looking at him. "What?" Naruto asked, confused, getting sweat drops from everyone who was conscious. Naruto was smacked on the back of his head by Itachi as Naruto sighed. "What's your problem, cat lady?" Naruto asked as he rubbed the back of his head and looked at Itachi. "When did you get contacted by Squad 0? Itachi asked loudly as he looked at everyone who nodded and sighed. "I guess an explanation is in order." Then Naruto groaned out as he sat down. "Well, I think it was before I met Ichigo's dad," Naruto said as he rubbed his chin. "Yeah, that's right. It was one day when I was on delivery for the store. I bumped into Ichigo who had asked if I would join Squad 0. Said the Soul King wanted me to join," Naruto said as he sighed. "You know, the boring stuff," Naruto said, getting a larger sweat drops from some, and Shunsui nodded at his reasoning. "So you're telling me, about 20 human world years ago Squad 0 contacted you?" Itachi asked as Naruto nodded, "And you didn't join them?" That would have been a huge upgrade than working with the 13-count guards, Urichi hissed. In response, Naruto shrugged. I never really looked at where they were planning on placing me, Naruto said in a bored tone. For all I know it might have been extremely annoying and time-consuming, Naruto groaned out before looking off. And I never would have been able to help Ichigo get his little girlfriend back from here, Naruto said as he then looked around. So does that answer your questions about when they asked me the first time? Naruto asked, getting nods from them all as he sighed again before looking up. I will say though, Naruto said, getting everyone's attention, I'm very pissed that Aizen got away, Naruto growled as his spiritual pressure increased, shocking everyone there before it seemingly vanished. But you know, I guess nothing goes the way I planned today, Naruto said, confusing them until he stood up straight. What do you mean, Naruto? Asked Yamamoto, making his presence known. Huh? Naruto asked as he looked to Yamamoto. Well, I was hoping that Ichigo wouldn't have gotten access to his mask yet, Naruto said as he looked at Ichigo. It's just he hasn't confronted it and he doesn't even know about it yet, other than the mask showing up randomly when he is injured, Naruto said, surprising the captains he knew what the mask was about. What is the mask about, Naruto? Asked Unohana as Naruto looked to her as he now had Ichigo slung over his shoulder. Oh, the mask, huh? Naruto said thoughtfully. Well, it makes him a visard, Naruto said as he looked to the others. Not a Shinigami or hollow, he's in between the two, Naruto said as he groaned and twisted his back a little to crack all the stiff joints, not to be confused with Aizen's little toys, though as we can't go to Hukomondo it will, Naruto said. We? Yamamoto asked as Naruto raised an eyebrow and nodded. Who else is there? Yamamoto asked as Naruto laughed a little. Now Yamaji, that would be telling, Naruto said with a grin, but just know, we won't be picking sides with the hollows or the Shinigami, Naruto said, but then looked to be in thought that is until our leader becomes one of them, Naruto said, not wanting to give away who the leader of the visards are. The captains looked to be thinking as Shunsui, and Unohana seemed to get a look of realization. How many of you are there alive? Shunsui asked as Naruto tilted his head and held his chin. Well, considering Ichigo hasn't been initiated, 9, including me, without me there is another 8 who are about as strong as the captains in their respective areas, Naruto said seriously as he looked Shunsui in the eye. Shunsui's eyes showed he was worried about someone, and Naruto smirked knowing who it was as he nodded. As soon as Naruto nodded, Shunsui gained a small look of relief, but not enough to signify the other captains. So, who is the leader? Yamamoto asked as Naruto looked to him and sighed, scratching his head. Well, Naruto said as he rubbed his chin and thought, how about I give you all a hint and then you'll have to guess? Naruto asked with a fox-like smirk. In response, the captains nodded and Naruto scratched his head and thought, the leader used to be a lieutenant of one of the 13 squads, Naruto said, and they looked to be expecting more, and he laughed. I only said one hint, Naruto said, and he was about to leave until he heard someone talk up. It was the group who went to investigate the disappearances, those are the members of the visards. The voice asked. Naruto stopped and turned to see it was Yuki-take asked as Naruto sighed. Yes, Yuki-take, the visards contain the investigation squad. Within that squad alone were 4 captains and 5 lieutenants, most of which were bordering captain level, Naruto confirmed before he then said, but if I had to guess, I would say all 9 of us are captain rank or higher, include Ichigo into that, and we have 10 captain level visards who can use some hollow abilities. Such as their Sanito or the Zero, Naruto said, shocking the conscious people. Byakuya, who was starting to wake up, overheard the ending and looked at Naruto in shock. What do you mean, Naruto? Byakuya asked as Naruto turned to him and grinned. A little Byakuya, I was wondering when you'd wake up. As for what I mean is, Naruto was about to finish until he saw the rest of Ichigo's friends arrive. Oh, never mind, I believe it's time everyone got some rest. The day has been very busy, Naruto said as he walked away waving over his shoulder before throwing Ichigo to Orihime. Look after him, Orihime, Naruto said as Orihime nodded a little with a small blush as Naruto grinned while Naruto was walking, though he never expected for the lieutenant of Squad 10 to jump on his back, practically forcing his head between her beep. Well, the back of his head. Oh hey there, you must be Rangiku, Naruto said with a small smirk as he felt her nod before she spoke up. And you're the infamous Naruto Uzumaki who was able to fight most of the captains to a standstill, using nothing but your Shikai. Why did you not use your Bankai? She asked as Naruto kept walking with her on his back. Oh, I never had Bankai back then, I only got it when I got to the world of the living, Naruto said for her to hear as she nodded a little. Was there anything else you'd like to ask? She looked a little stunned before nodding slightly and clearing her throat. Yes, I was wondering when you planned to take me on that date you mentioned at the lieutenant meeting, she said as she looked into his eyes as he smiled. So you're taking me up on an offer I made when I was still an enemy of Sirte, huh? He asked with a smirk before shaking his head. Yeah, sure, I'll take you on a date in the human world. All you need is a Gigai, he said with a smile as she looked confused before nodding. Naruto smiled and waved over his shoulder as he walked off and then vanished in a shunpo and appeared in front of Squad 12's main lab and walked in with a neutral face as he kept walking his hands in his pockets. After walking for a short while he made it to a small button. He pushed and walked to a vault that appeared and punched in the code 5796 and looked inside, only to smirk. "Kisuke, you smart bastard," Naruto said with a smirk as he picked up something he was hoping to never see again. It was Reiatsu restrainer that Kisuke invented and used on Naruto as a test. They never removed it as it allowed Naruto better control over his monster Reiatsu size, but now that he was older and his Reiatsu reserves would stop growing as fast, he decided it was time to remove it. Naruto placed the device against his right shoulder and took a deep breath to keep the Reiatsu he currently has under control. After he had it all under his control, he pressed a button on the side of the limiter and his Reiatsu capacity upgraded tenfold. He had more Reiatsu than the captain of Squad 0 and almost as much as the Soul King. Naruto tried his best to get it under control until 30 minutes later he did. As soon as he got it under control he sighed. "Gotta report this to Kisuke. The device allows the Reiatsu that is blocked off to still grow," Naruto muttered as he turned around to see Yamamoto staring at him with wide eyes. "Hey, what's up, old man? You look like you've seen a ghost," Naruto said as Yamamoto snapped out of his shock. "Naruto, what did you do?" Yamamoto asked, curious at what the young Shinigami did. "Huh? Oh, this?" Naruto asked, holding up the limiter. "This is a limiter that Kisuke was working on before we got kicked out. He asked me to come and get it to take the limiter off my Reiatsu to see if the device has any faults that need tweaking. I just need to report it still allows the Reiatsu that is sealed off to grow at insane rates, and then he can tweak it," Naruto said casually as he walked past Yamamoto and whistled a little tune. Surprisingly, Yamamoto had never heard it, but I'm sure the readers would know it. After all, it's the Looney Tunes theme song. Naruto walked through Sirte and sat outside of Squad 4's barracks on the roof and saw everyone entering until he felt Itachi appear next to him. "Hey, what's up?" he asked. Itachi looked at him. "I see you got the limit removed like Kisuke asked." Itachi inquired as he nodded his head, humming softly. "What's next?" Itachi asked as he hummed thoughtfully. "Wait for our group's injuries to heal up, then we head on home. Luckily for them, since they aren't souls, the time difference between the worlds won't affect them and they'll feel like they've been gone for 1 week," Naruto said as Itachi nodded and he yawned slightly, looking up at the sky. "I miss it here sometimes," he whispered. Itachi looked at him. "I may have all my friends I do over there, but here, I have people like family, Yamamoto being one of them. Then if I remember correctly my auntie probably passed and there was my original goal to find my parents." He sighed and smiled softly. "But over the past few decades, well, I've made new family in every one of you guys," he whispered as Itachi smiled. "You're my older sister kind of, while Kisuke is the cool older brother." "Si being the strict older brother," Naruto said as Itachi smiled at him more. "But don't tell them I said this," Naruto said as Itachi laughed at him. "Don't worry, I won't," Itachi said as Naruto smiled as he stood up. "I'd better get checking on the brat before we leave and maybe have a small spar with Kenny," Naruto said as he hopped off the roof and walked inside, leaving Itachi until her eyes widened at the mention of sparring Kenny. "Naruto, don't you dare think of sparring Kenny, you'll both destroy Squad 11 barracks," she shouted, chasing after him. -1 week after the raid on Sirte. Naruto was stood next to the Shinkaman as he looked at everyone there. "Where's the brat?" he asked in a bored tone as Itachi landed on his head. "Ichigo is currently checking on Byakuya and Rukia," Itachi said as he sighed softly. "Of course he is," Naruto said and then heard someone shouting to wait up and turned to see Ichigo finally. "Right, now that everyone's here, let's head home. I'm sure Kisuke wants to see us all and I need to go talk to some people," Naruto said as he tapped the Shinkaman, surprising the captains as it opened and he pointed. "Go," he said to the teens and saw Ichigo carrying a substitute Soul Reaper badge and looked to the captains and sighed as he entered. While he was walking he smirked a little, seeing their confused faces. "What's with the smirk, Naruto?" Ichigo asked as Naruto hummed. "Oh, just the cleaner is coming," Naruto said with a large smirk and they looked behind them to see it coming and started to run while Naruto jogged, keeping up perfectly fine. "Oh, this speed is boring," he said and grabbed Ichigo and Chad. "Orihim and Quincy boy, put a hand on Chad or Ichigo, we'll be home soon," he said as they put a hand on them and then everyone vanished. When they looked around they saw Naruto stood perfectly fine and the portal closing. They looked around and saw themselves at Urahara's house. My positioning was a little off," he said as he heard the door open and felt Itachi hop off his head and walk into the shop. "Ah, it's good to see you're all back," Kisuke said as Naruto nodded and started to walk away. "I have places to be and people to talk to," Naruto said before he vanished and Ichigo grumbled. "Damned bastard, just abandoning us like this." Ichigo sat up and saw Kisuke laughing softly. "How about I get you all home?" Kisuke asked as they nodded and he tapped his cane, making a large safe zone. "Get in, I'll be flying off soon," Kisuke said as they nodded and got in. "With Naruto?" Naruto had walked into the abandoned factory area and walked into a seemingly abandoned one, but knew that Hachi had a barrier around it. As soon as he entered he dodged a sword/oi monkey brat, he said. As the girl's eyes widened, "I suggest you stop," Naruto said simply as she nodded and backed up. "Sorry Naruto," she said as he shrugged and looked around. "Where's Shinji?" he asked as Hiyori pointed to the hatch, and he sighed as he opened it and jumped into the large space. "Shinji," he said, and saw someone turn to him. "You got a mission from me," Naruto said as he nodded. "It's time to watch Ichigo. He's unlocked his mask, and I want you to test him a little and see how he fights," Naruto said as he sat on a rock, "but give him a month or so," Naruto said as he nodded. "So, little Ichigo finally unlocked his hollow mask?" Shinji asked as Naruto nodded. "In a fight again little Byakuya as well," Naruto said as he chuckled. "I may also be forced to join Squad 0 soon. I'll ask for an observation position," Naruto said, surprising those there. "You're finally joining their ranks?" he heard Lisa ask as he nodded. "Yep, Sarate has even excused your crimes as Central 46 called it," Naruto said with a smirk. "Aizen finally made his move, and we're preparing to counter it," Naruto said as he stood up and looked in a random direction. "Anyways, don't bother me, I'm off to train my hollow mask to extend the time, and also to train with my Bankai," Naruto said, surprising the visards as he vanished. "He does know he's the strongest out of us all right?" Hachijin asked as Shinji nodded. "If he knows, why does he keep training?" Hachijin asked again as Shinji replied. "He plans to protect us all if he needs to, even if it kills him," Shinji said seriously as they all looked to him, and he chuckled. "I believe we'd best get training then if Naruto is," Shinji said as he stood up and summoned his Zanpakuto. -2 weeks later. Naruto was walking towards Urahara's shop when he felt someone jump on his back and sighed. "When did you get here, Rangiku?" he asked as she hummed. 10 minutes ago, Urahara told me I could find you over here," she said as he smiled softly. "I see you got a gig eye as well," he said as she nodded. "So prepared for our date?" he asked as she nodded again, and he hummed. "How does ramen sound?" "After all, I didn't get to prepare too much," Naruto said as she shrugged. "Why not?" she said as he walked with her next to him, the two holding hands. Upon reaching the ramen stand she read the name Ichiraku's Ramen, and Naruto smiled, opening the flap and walking in with her. "Boy, old man, I'm here on a date," Naruto shouted into the stand as Rangiku blushed and sat on a stool next to him as an older man came out and smiled. "Ah, Naruto boy, nice to see you again," the elder said as Naruto nodded. "How are you, Tucci?" Naruto asked as he nodded. "I'm good, Am is studying for her finals so she can't help out. I'm just glad we aren't too busy," Tucci said as Naruto nodded. "Anyways, what are you and your girlfriend having?" Tucci asked as Naruto hummed. "I'll have my regular and whatever Rangiku wants," Naruto said as she nodded. Could I have a miso pork?" she asked as he nodded and started to cook the ramen. When done he put down 2 bowls to Naruto and 1 to Rangiku. "Enjoy," Tucci said as Naruto smiled and split the chopsticks with a quick thank you and started to eat as he talked to Rangiku, the two getting to know each other a little more. After the date, Naruto had claimed he would have loved to have met Rangiku earlier in life than right now, because he would have claimed her as his own, which confused her until he chuckled. "I mean, I would have married you by now," Naruto said as she nodded softly, and he paid for their ramen as they walked out of the stall. After saying goodbye to the owner, they made their way towards Urahara's shop making small talk. Once reaching it, Naruto opened the door and smirked at Urahara. "Hey there, bucket hat bastard," Naruto said as he walked into the shop as he heard someone laughing and turned to see a redhead. "Who's the guest?" Naruto asked as Urahara replied. "This is Renji Abarai," Urahara replied as Naruto hummed. "Oh right, little Byakuya's lieutenant?" Naruto asked as Renji looked confused but nodded. "Yes, I am Captain Kichiki's lieutenant," Renji said. "Who are you?" he asked as Naruto smirked. "Oh me? I'm Naruto Uzumaki, ex-lieutenant to Shunsui, although I've been approached by a squad that's basically a myth to you too," he said as he stretched. "Apart from that, I own this shop alongside Urahara, although I don't live here," Naruto said as Kisuke nodded. "Yeah, after I kicked you out," Kisuke said as Naruto tch''D. "I'll have you know I planned to move out for months before you even asked me to leave," Naruto said before he yawned a little and opened a book on the counter and closed it. "Of course you still read this porn, Kisuke," Naruto said, throwing the book at the bucket hat wearing scientist. "Eh?" Kisuke asked before catching the book. "This isn't my book," Kisuke said as he looked at Naruto. "I thought it was yours," Kisuke said as Naruto scoffed. "Like I needed porn, I used to imagine Yurichi, but after meeting Rangiku here," he said, trailing off as Kisuke sighed. "Maybe it's Tess eyes. Or has Shinji been here?" he asked as Kisuke hummed. "Tess eye?" Urahara shouted into the shop and out came Tess eye. "This yours?" he asked holding up the book as Tess eye shook his head. "Then whose?" Urahara asked himself as Naruto looked to Renji. "Not mine, I don't read that stuff," Renji said as Naruto hummed and his eyes widened. "You don't think it belongs to one of the brats?" Naruto asked as Kisuke hummed. "It could." Kisuke hummed more. "Hey Naruto, could you go and get them after school?" Kisuke asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, anyways Renji, if you and Rangiku are here, does that mean Ichigo's female friend is here? Naruto asked as Renji raised a brow. Rukia? Renji asked as Naruto nodded and he looked away. Yeah, Rukia came, she even has her Zanpakuto back, Renji said as Naruto hummed. So she's the ice witch, Naruto said looking out of the shop. Rukia's Zanpakuto is ice-based if I had to guess, Naruto said getting a nod as he sighed and stood up. Rangiku following his action. I'm going to collect the brats, you know how to contact me if you need me, Naruto said as Kisuke nodded. -3 months later. Naruto was sad in his house as he sighed. Aizen is making his move, he whispered to himself, but heard a female groan and smiled. You know, just because you got assigned to protect Karakura town doesn't mean you have to stay here, he said rubbing her stomach, especially since you know what it turns into, he whispered in her ear as she shivered. Oh, but you're just so good, Naru, came the voice of Naruto's favorite strawberry blonde, you always make me pass out, she whispered as she sat up and cuddled him sadly. I have to go report in, or I would have had a very nice ride of you before reporting, she said as he kisses her head and lets her get dressed. That's right, over the past 3 months a lot has happened. They found out Rukia is a closet pervert as she owned the porn book Naruto found 3 months ago. They had a fight with immortals who called themselves Bounce. It annoyed Naruto, but he didn't get involved, and recently he assigned Shinji to watch over Ichigo in school and to only make contact when Shinji deemed he was prepared to tame his hollow. Naruto sighed as he sipped his coffee and looked to the bedroom door to see Rangiku leaving in her shihakusho and returning to Sarate as he yawned softly. Their relationship had improved to the point where they were sleeping with each other and both loved it. They also became an actual couple. As Naruto took another sip, he felt 2 spiritual presences appear and groaned. Garganta, he whispered as he stood up, suppressing his presence before vanishing and reappearing near the 2 presents, and hummed Aizen's pawns, he whispered to himself and saw the bigger one fighting Ichigo, even if the bigger one wasn't trying too hard inside. He spectated the fight, keeping his presence hidden completely until he saw Urahara show up with Yoruichi and block the big guy, Yami's, attack. Hey, Ulquiorra, is this one of them? Yami asked as the shorter one nodded. Yes, the 2 of them are also dangers to Lord Aizen's plan, the shorter one, Ulquiorra said as they then heard someone sigh from a tree branch, and Ulquiorra looked up seeing a small speck of blonde before he felt his arm missing. Wah. Ulquiorra muttered in surprise. So, these are Aizen's elite guards. They heard a drawled out voice as Ulquiorra turned to see Naruto holding his arm and seeming staring at it. Not very strong if you ask me, Naruto mumbled as he stared at the arm, then again, he trailed off looking at the tattoos on the 2 espada. Hey Urahara, wanna swap? Naruto asked as he heard Urahara sigh. Why so, Naruto? Urahara asked a little pissed off as Naruto chuckled. Ah, I guess you don't know then, obviously you can't feel their hidden presence in them, huh? Naruto asked as he shrugged and threw the arm back to Ulquiorra. Big guy there is stronger than Batman here, Naruto said as he held out one of his hands. I really want to see if the apparent strongest of them can make me use 2 swords, Naruto said as a sword appeared in his hand, and he chanted Set your foes Blaze, Amaterasu. As soon as he finished, his sword was released into Shikai form, and Yami sweated a little at the spiritual pressure, but smirked knowing it would be a good fight. Or would have been. Yami, we're leaving. Now, Ulquiorra said as Naruto clicked his tongue. So Aizen's pawns were warned about me? Naruto asked before sighed. Sorry Amaterasu, no blood today, he said as the sword went back to sealed form before returning to a ring. Run along little bat, little centipede after all. By Aizen's terms we aren't supposed to fight yet, he said as he hummed and started to walk away before vanishing in his new technique he made. It's a longer ranged shunpo, and he decided to call it shunshin. When he reappeared he set up a barrier and flared his Riatsu. After a short wait a door seemingly opened and out walked Ichigo, who looked at Naruto. You have you answer? Asked Ichigo as Naruto nodded. As long as we assist in the coming war, I don't want to have people I care about dying on me now, boss, Naruto said before Ichigo nodded and the 2 walked through the opening. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.